I'm Dr. Bird. I am a biblical scholar, and I happen to care a great deal about what people do with what they find in the Bible or with what they've been told to find in the Bible, depending on how they've been taught to read a story, which very much applies to today's topic. So in this series, Does the Bible Tell You So? I'm not quite sure what to label this one, but this is about the Tower of Babel, and I have students every term, so 3-4 times a year, I go through this with students online. How are you taught to read the story that we refer to as the Tower of Babel? Have you been taught to think of it as humans disobeying or doing something selfish and God punishes them because they're self-centered or they're promoting themselves or something negative about the humans and their ambitions? I'm wondering if that's how you've heard it. I say that because that's how I thought about it, and every single time I ask students to read it, I will get them saying something about that. So I'm going to ask you to take a moment to reflect on what you've been told, if you have been told anything, about what the story, the Tower of Babel, is about. And then I'd like to invite you to just listen as I read it, and then I'll point a few things out. And that's today's video, okay? I'm reading from my paperback version because it makes me happy to hold it in my hands. Okay, so this is in Genesis chapter 11. Now, the whole earth had one language and the same words. And as they migrated from the east, they came upon a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." And they had brick for stone and bitumen for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves. Otherwise we shall be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth." The Lord came down to see the city and the tower which mortals had built. And the Lord said to someone else, "Look, they are one people, and they have all one language, and this is only the beginning of what they will do. Nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language there, so that they will not understand one another's speech." So the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of all the earth, and they left off building the city. Therefore it was called Babel, because the Lord confused the language of all the earth, and from there the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of all the earth. Okay, end of story. Because this comes after Genesis 3, in which many people are taught to see something very negative about the humans being disobedient, and there's an element of the fall. I mean, I just heard someone in Starbucks the other day referring to the fall, right? It's the way people are taught to think about Genesis 2 and 3. So because we have that, and then that awful fratricide in chapter 4 of Genesis, where Cain kills, his brother Abel, because of all that yuck, people are just prone to, and revved up to see humans are sinful and it's a problem, we gotta fix that. And so many people read this story as this is a problem what these humans are doing. How about we take a step back and we consider that, again, for the people in this location, all they're saying is, let us make a name for ourselves, as in, we want to stop being scattered from our relatives. We want to be established and be a people on our own so that we can be here and people will stop messing with us. To say we want to make a name for ourselves is not the same thing as being really super arrogant and wanting to be a superstar. At this place and point in time, I think it's more about just wanting to survive and be able to stake a claim on a certain piece of land and just thrive there. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. And when they say, let us build for ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, I see a lot of people saying they were trying to reach the heavens and conquer God or be like God. How about everybody likes the view from on high? It doesn't have to be something negative and awful, right? How about we let go of the antagonism that many people have been taught to read onto these stories and just let them be normal humans who appreciate a good view? You know what I'm saying? And it is interesting to me because if you pay attention to the language of the story, God is behaving he's a bit petty. He's terrified of what humans might achieve if they work well together. Did you notice that? The Lord came down to see the city. Look, they are one people and they all have one language. This beautiful city and tower is just the beginning of what they will do. Nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. What if people claimed that part of the story? Nothing is impossible for us as humans if we just get on the same page with each other. If we start speaking the same language about what the problem is in this instance, what the problem is here, and we can speak together and work together, there's nothing we can't accomplish if we work together. Wouldn't that be lovely if we claimed that part of the story instead of the negative side? And if we just let the story be what it is, it's an etiology. It's explaining why neighboring peoples have different languages or different cultures and rituals. Right? I actually think God is a little petty in this story, and it's okay to say that and let that be the case if you really do think of God in a different way than just what is represented here. And I think it's healthier to think of God differently than the way God is depicted here, if you're going to believe in God at all. Let us go down and confuse their language there so that they will not understand one another's speech. I mean, that's just cruel, and right? If you think this is really who God is. And I don't, right? I think of this as a story trying to explain some things. And so God sees that they're all speaking the same language and spreads them out and does all that, right? So we get lots of kind of little eruptions in this story about what people were dealing with, what they were trying to explain, really some interesting insights about humans and maybe even human nature that are being overlooked. These positive pieces about, when we get together and speak in ways that we can all understand, there's nothing that we can't do. And in a day and in an age of things are happening on this planet that we all need to work together to be able to address, I think that I'd rather claim that part than start looking at and judging the humans there for something that I don't even see the story upholding. Does that make sense to you? Anyway, I'm really disturbed by the way the Tower of Babel is often handled and the way I hear people over and over talking about it. So I thought I would do one of my videos on it. I hope this has been helpful for you. See you next time. I'm thinking about my doorbell when you